Hello, this is Heather and Ann from Journeys with PDA, and we are here today with my amazing mother, Connie. She is the Nana to my amazing son, Will. And Will and I recently spent a week with Nana and her husband, Grampy, and my father and my stepmother, Will's other set of grandma and grandpas. And it had been about a year and 3/4 of another year since the last time my mother had actually spent any time with Will because of, well, first timing and then the pandemic happened. So um, it had been a while since we had any kind of interaction with the grandparents and Will. And kind of at the end of the trip, and even after Will and I got home, my mom just kept making the comment that it was the trip was very different this time. And admittedly, the last time my mom had actually seen Will and spent time with Will, we had not started our PDA friendly um, parenting with Will. It was still very much a parenting style that would be considered, coming from a behavior standpoint, where we had very rigid rules and, et cetera, et cetera. So I asked my mom if she would mind joining Ann and I and kind of, just a chat about what exactly she saw, um, and how the experience was different than visits in the past. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Will's Nana, my mom.
Well, I've been through a lot with you and Will from the beginning, and so I've seen different changes all the way through this process, this never-ending process that we're doing. I did notice right away that there was a calmness about Will and Heather when they, within 10 minutes after I was with them, and I thought, I just sat back and observed. And then it progressively, different things that he would do, he would not be so fast reacting as he had in the past. And Heather seemed to have a lot more patience and more laid back, so to speak. When she first told me about PDA, I thought, oh, wow, all those therapies that we went through. And I feel like I say we because I was with her most of the time in LA when he was very young. And those are so rigid. They really, therapies are rigid in my mind's eye. And they did well with Will. Um, but it put a lot of demand on him. And when Heather first told me about PDA, I did have questions, but I knew that Heather, being the teacher in her and everything else, that she wouldn't jump into something without putting her boots on. You know, she's going to research, read, and before she actually submits to that desire. And through this past year and a half, since we couldn't be together, all we had was the phone to converse as far as what Will was doing. And she ordered books for me to read, which I have, and that has helped me immensely. I really suggest to parents, well, anyone that's going to be in a lot of contact with that child or adult, they need to have a little bit of head knowledge of what PDA is all about, because it's a whole lot different than um, what was in the past. And thus far, it was such um, a positive receiving of Will, that he was more loving. He was more, he would, Will's always been special to me and I to him, Will and Nana. But without saying, hey, Will, come and give Nana a hug and kiss. I mean, he just inadvertently, he was there with his arms out and he wanted that contact. He wanted communication. Um, Will was delayed in speech, but he never really was a conversationalist per se. And I really see that this program has helped him in relaxing with the people around him, to be able to feel safe to say what he wants to say, if that makes sense. I
Yeah,
just yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
What was there any like specific examples of the visit where you thought maybe the situation would have turned out differently had we not adopted the PDA parenting lifestyle that we have now?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if you you probably remember it, but I don't remember what the surrounding issue was, that Will, you can tell when they're about ready to go into a meltdown, and you right away you picked up on that, and you diverted him by, of all things, wrestling with him. I thought, what what is going on? They're going to break something. But in doing that, it sort of gave him that arms on comfort that he needs. And he just sort of succumbed to that. And I mean, it wasn't 10 minutes, if that. Whereas before, oh, mercy me.
Yeah, we had that was the night that I accidentally um, put him in a situation where he knocked over a glass of water. I mean, it was just water, but it was, we know that things just aren't glasses of water, right? It's not just about the water. And we could see that spiraling, you know, so it was an immediate, I took all the blame for what had happened, even though it was, I wasn't near it. um, we got it cleaned up, and then it was, things were still kind of me, and we just kind of launched right into a wrestle, you know, mania in the living in the living room
out of the way.
while we were watching America's Got Talent. Yeah, so um, that's a perfect example of the difference, because before he would have, it would have been a huge meltdown because of the water being spilled, but because we were able to
Right,
divert that, you know, energy in
right.
a different direction, and he got the deep pressure, which I think he was, you know, he needed at that point to help calm himself down. Um, can you can you kind of springing this one on you, Mom? Um, you know, is how are your thoughts and your feelings about when you hear him say things that maybe aren't the most appropriate things for an 11-year-old to say? Um, you know,
Yeah,
I know that you have heard him make comments and say things that um, typically, you know, in a typical family wouldn't fly. Um,
no, wouldn't, or anybody on the outside
or
family would.
anybody, yeah.
Well, yeah, but yes, the first time I witnessed that, I sort of went, what? Because Heather just sat there and she responded to him quite clearly, and he just kept on his merry way with his little tongue wagging. Had that happened before, it wouldn't have happened before PDA, because as soon as Will would have said a bad word, Heather would have been right there, okay, and doing her reprimanding. And then that would even grow into a really, they were both kind of just at edge and on each other, and nothing was resolved. But with mm, her accepting what he said, there was less pressure. I could see it on Will's face, you know, and it was a shock at first. But then the more I learned about PDA and what it involves, I understand more. And it's a release for Will. I feel like it's a release for Will.
Yeah.
You know,
You said,
instead of throwing something, because I've seen him at pretty much his worst, and instead of going into that kind of a rage, he just sort of lets his tongue do the talking, and but he calms right down. You know, I don't know if any other PDAers have that outlet, but I'm sure they each have their own thing that they do to handle it.
right.
And what I would say about that I appreciate is that you have accepted that PDA parents have to choose their battles too. And, that is not one that Heather's probably going to choose, particularly at your all's house where, you guys are going to love Will and you're going to love Heather regardless of the words that come out of Will's mouth
Right.
versus, and I know Heather and I have had these conversations about, she talks to Will about kind of where it's okay to say those things and where it's not. And so what that also reminded me of is Will feels safe enough with you all that he can say that. And so that speaks loudly to me about how you guys have accepted Will for Will. There's not, you want him to be something, different or whatever. So I just appreciate that because it just shows your acceptance of Will, but it also shows your acceptance of Heather and her parenting, that, you're not sitting there going, I cannot believe that she is allowing him to speak that way. And
No.
and we all know that there's some grandparents that would think exactly that. So anyway, that.
Yeah, and I could sense per the other grandparents that maybe would not be so receptive
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Sure.
But that stands to reason too. But
Right.
he didn't. He was really good as far as I didn't hear any bad words.
Not on
My,
the trip. You have, I mean, I'm thinking about the time, the very
yes.
first time we heard him say the F word, and it
Oh
was,
yeah.
we were either Zooming or it was over the phone or something like that.
Well, I was in person when I
Oh,
was.
that's it?
Yeah, he went. Yeah, something didn't go his way, and it was like a hurricane came through with words. But thank you for that, for saying that, because I just want to do whatever I can do to make Heather's world easier and Will's world easier when I am with them. So
And I just need to tell you that gives me goosebumps.
It does.
Because my parents have both passed and my husband's dad has passed, and so we have one grandma, and she is amazing with Drew as well. Loves him absolutely unconditionally. There's no judgment about things. But we in our parent groups that we have, unfortunately that's not the case for every family. So just to hear you say that, it really does give me goosebumps, because before we knew what was going on with Drew, my mom passed when Drew was 3. But we didn't know what was going on then. But my mom would make comments like, well, I don't think Drew even likes me. And that would make me feel bad, as far as that's just Drew's personality. It wasn't focused on Nana. It wasn't because my mom was Nana too. It wasn't focused on Nana. It wasn't focused on a particular person. That's just was his personality. With PDA, like, they're not going to necessarily make an effort to be kind or be nice or go above and beyond. But we didn't know what we were dealing with then. But anyway, it's just so nice that that Heather has your support, because that makes this parenting gig is not easy. It's exhausting. It's overwhelming. It's amazing and it's wonderful. All of this, it's all wrapped up in this very complicated package, but I know that has to mean the world to her.
You guys are diamonds in the rough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we had some questions that some of our PDA families had for you today, Mom, when they found out that we were going to be doing this chat with you. And I know that some of these you kind of already hit on, but I'm going to ask again in case
Okay.
you want to add some more specifics to it. Was there any moment or particular moment or resources that helped you understand what PDA was, or that what made it click with you?
Getting head knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to do whatever. The person that is outside wanting to share the inside of the situation, they can't just think they can fly by night and know what's going on. They need to put the boots on and jump in and read. I read, and you sent me, like I said, those books, and that helps me. And it brought questions up to me that I, in turn, asked you to give me the answer that I didn't understand. So it was kind of like a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
You shared so much with me, but yet if I read something, I was like, wait a minute, we haven't talked about that. And then I go to you and go, explain to me, daughter, I don't understand this one. And you would. Just having that door open.
Sure.
And that's
and you being willing to ask the questions, that's
right.
the, instead of making assumptions or well, I don't get it, it's not it's not in my paradigm, so I'm not going to accept it. So you and the other grands willingness to ask questions
Yes.
is huge
Yes.
too. Is huge too. What is it about the PDA parenting style that makes sense to you?
The parenting style.
Yeah, the low demand, no demand parenting style. What part of that makes the most sense to you?
Less pressure. I mean, demand. Demand, I think, is the big word.
Mm-hmm.
You are putting the demand on the child or person, adult, whatever, whomever. It's just, I can tell that he's more at ease with himself.
PDA parenting is just good parenting. It's,
Yes.
I mean, for us, it's, let me back up. PDA parenting can work with all kids, all situations. It's
Absolutely.
not about letting the kid do whatever they want. It's about parenting, specifically how the child needs to be parented. Do you have a better way of saying that, Anne? Because I know I may have.
No, I mean, I think you explained it well. I mean, I've talked before about how, I've said before that I parent my boys based on their needs. And so I don't parent Carter the way I parent Drew, and I don't parent Drew the way I do Carter. However, the more I've learned about parenting a PDAer has also now helped me parent Carter more like I parent Drew, still not exactly the same, But I will say that I was much more, I've always feel like I parented my boys the way, like based on their needs and their personalities. However, I still had much more of a traditional parenting style with Carter than I did with Drew. And so it took me a while to figure out, now, wait a minute, why am I not parenting Carter in this way as well? Because it's good parenting for him also. So no, I think that makes total sense. It's just that I would say I still parent based on their needs, and what Carter needs isn't necessarily full on PDA parenting. You know what I mean? But
Right,
there's
right.
parts of it that certainly work better than the traditional way that I was going, or that my husband and I were going about it. But I had a question kind of connected to that is, so at first when Heather first introduced PDA to you, as far as, this is what we think, this is what we think's going on, did you have a hard time accepting though that whether like that this was the way she was going to parent? Did it sound like kind of, whoa, are you
Well,
sure about that?
I, and I hate to keep uh, reminiscing this part of Heather's and my relationship, but I know that Heather is not going to, if she makes a decision, she's done her research. She's done her research, and I will back her. So really, I had no qualms. I really didn't. And and having seen Will for the first time a couple of weeks ago, I said amen, because yeah, yes,
Yeah, it really probably solidified this parenting style that, now you could see
absolutely,
that, not having seen him in person, because even if you've done Zoom or FaceTime or whatever, it's still certainly different than being in person. And so for
absolutely.
you to see him have that much time between then and now, I'm sure for you, it honestly had to be a pretty amazing experience, as far as like you've had these conversations, you've read the books, you've done all this and it makes sense to you and you're very accepting, but to actually see it in,
Yeah,
it had to
yes,
be, and to see, like, I love what you said too about, like, to see how much more calm Will was, but also to see how much calmer Heather was.
yes.
And that's what, one of the things we really try to share with parents is that once you adopt this lifestyle, like really adopt it, like in your heart, believe it, own it, this is what we need to do, not just because it's something someone's telling me to do. It's amazing what freedom it gives us as parents, just because you see that it works. And then once your kid is happier and well adjusted, then obviously as a parent, and that goes for any parent, when your kid's happy, you're happy.
Right, absolutely.
So yeah, we have this thing in our house, when Will's happy, we're all happy.
Yeah, we kind of adopt that same.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then another question from our PDA family group: was there a grieving process for you when it came to accepting um, autism PDA with Will?
Well, yes. In the very beginning, before PDA came into the picture, I would sit, and I'm a prayer warrior, and I would pray that, open my eyes, Jesus. Let me understand what Heather is going through. And um I just gave it to God. But there were times when I said, why couldn't it have been me? And I'm 70. Uh I've had a good life. Why couldn't it have been me and let Will? But on the flip side of that coin, he wouldn't be Will. He wouldn't be Will. So that kind of brought me back into the saddle. But yeah, I will have to say I grieve, but it was from the beginning, not through the initiation of PDA.
Hmm.
There was no grief there because I felt like it was a new open door for him and for you, Heather. But yeah, definitely.
And it's a very human and normal um, thing to
Yeah,
to grieve what you think, what your hopes were, as the
I know.
parent,
Yes.
what your expectations were. Um, so we talk about grief a lot in our chats, and
Mhm.
it's a perfectly
Yes.
okay and normal experience.
Yes.
And then we've even talked before, and this is going a little bit off subject. Sometimes you think you're past a point in the grief, and then you go back. You don't stay there as long, but then you just keep going. You go forward, and then sometimes you experience it again.
Having you said that, it opened up some windows for me just now.
Mhm.
You're right. You're right as far as I had thoughts of Will's not going to be able to do this.
Mhm.
Will's not going to be able to do that. Blah, blah, blah. But Will did what Will could do. Look at the artist that he is.
Mhm.
Look at the technique that the computer
Mhm.
stuff that he knows, and just world knowledge. He's above me as far as history or anything like that. I
They're
mean,
all above us.
yeah, just
Every one of the kids that they are. Yes.
yes, just one example is the grandparents got Will something that he could work with while they were here.
It was a
And
marble maze. It was a
yeah,
3D marble maze. He
yes,
was
and
like
he was doing,
building.
he was working with it and doing it. And I said, Will, how do you know what to do? He stopped and he looked at me and said, well, Nana, you use your brain, and I'm like, shut the front door. Why didn't I think of that? It was so and when I see things like that, then my heart doesn't grieve as far as is he gonna do he's gonna do something and it's gonna be mighty. I just know that. But right now he's working through some things and God will give him what he needs. But
Is there anything that we haven't touched on, that you feel is important to add to this? Maybe anything that we didn't come up with, or you feel very strongly about, and it's okay to say no, there's nothing else.
oh, I found my other page. Let me see here.
Are, are we
Wait,
not, are we not,
hour.
daughter? Do we not share genes? Because I
Yeah,
am
yeah.
always going, I have it here somewhere. It's in a
What am
pile on my
stuck?
desk.
Oh, I know. No, I just, the one thing that I, I, I can say to the families that are going through it, that have families members that are kind of shutting away from it, the PDA road, give them time, give the parents time, but don't be afraid to feed them when it's the appropriate time.
Mhm.
Did I say that? Does that make
Yeah, yeah,
sense?
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
You wait.
And because they're going to think about it, they're going to think these little thoughts when they're not with you in the child. They're going to go, "Gee, Sarah said blah. That really does make sense." And they're going to see her work with that child and see the progression of that child and know that she knows what she's doing, or he.
Is there any particular and you might not remember the name of it, and that's fine. But is there any particular resource or information or video? Is there anything in particular that you remember thinking that, wow, that now that really makes sense, or that was like most helpful? Which I know what's most helpful to you might be different for someone else, but
Yes, I read the book, and I'm not good with remembering names right off the top of my head. I did research on the gentleman. What is his name?
Harry Thompson.
Harry. You know, just getting it from a PDAer, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, that really helped me. Harry helped me, and not that I doubted Heather,
Oh,
but I saw that it is what it is, and that I have to say, Harry gave me a lot of door openings to this. Yeah.
well, and it's interesting that you say that because we had Harry talk with our siblings of the PDAers, and some of the siblings, when they heard Harry talk, some of the siblings said, it's like he's just an older version of my brother. So it helped them. And it's same thing you're saying. Like, it's not that you don't believe Heather, but hearing it from Harry. And that's the way with these siblings. It's like they've heard their parents, I mean, how, I get to the point, I'm like, how many more ways can I try to explain PDA to Carter and he get it?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
when they hear Harry, it just, there's something about it that makes more sense because, you know, he's like their brother
Right.
or their sister or whatever. So
Yep.
that's
I
good to
agree.
know. I mean, I think there's parents, there's parents out there that are struggling with their relationship with their parents because either their parents aren't accepting of the grandchild as far as, well, they don't have PDA, you just are too, you're too easy on them, or you give in, or you just let them have their way. There's that. And then there's the um just not being willing and open-minded to even like take in the information. So that's why I wanted you to, I ask you about that because that might help parents if they haven't shared Harry's videos. Maybe that would be a route that they,
Oh,
they want
yes.
to take.
Yes. I'm reading PDAers, the book now.
Oh, PDA by PDAers.
Yeah, I'm reading that now. That's quite interesting.
I like that one because it's got like bite size,
Hmm.
you know, good
Hmm.
information in that.
Right. Right.
And again, it's by PDAers, so you're getting,
Exactly. Get it straight from the horse, not horse, well, from the
yeah,
kids, adults, whatever, whomever,
yeah.
their mouth. And what better way
Yep.
to know?
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that it's like Will knows he's autistic, and he accepts it, but I'm sure in his little mind there are times when he has his questions and stuff.
Hmm.
But I get, but I just see such a difference with the PDA road
Hmm.
and Will. I really do.
Yes,
Well,
Heather, I checked in with Heather a few times while I couldn't completely leave her alone, even though she was off the grid. I checked in with her a few times and and obviously afterwards. And um, I personally was so happy that Will enjoyed his time with you all as much as he did, because of course that means you guys were enjoying your time, and obviously Heather was too. But it just does my heart so good when PDAers enjoy themselves and have a good time,
yes,
because they have struggled along the way. And then once, obviously the way Heather's parenting, the way you guys have accepted that's what made Will also have such an amazing time, is that because his
yeah,
environment and the way everything was going on, he was able to enjoy himself. And that just, nothing makes my heart happier than a PDA or having a good time.
I mean, his grandpa Tom, he did so much with him. And 3 years ago, he'd have been on the couch with a computer, and that would be it. But he did. He went fishing, four wheeling, just a lot of stuff. And he wants to come back. He wants to go to Dollywood, which amazes me
Hmm.
because he wouldn't have done that
Hmm.
3 years ago. He'd go, no, thank you. he asked some, he was very polite in his no, thank you. But
I love it.
yeah,
Well, Mom,
Yes.
really, really appreciate you talking with us, and I
I
appreciate
enjoyed it.
you. Um, and hopefully this won't be our only chat with Will's Nana. Um,
I would
so
love to chat again. And yes, thank you so much. I think you're going to inspire a lot of grandparents and just other family members that, maybe don't understand as much. And just you sharing, this story and your experience, I think will really make a big difference. So thank you. And I know there's a lot of PDA parents that might want you to adopt them.
we've already
Well,
had
let me know.
we've had one request already. So
And then I was like,
What-
man, she got to her first. I don't know if she'll be willing to adopt more than one.
Mama Connie has been Mama Connie to a lot of people.
Yeah,
So
That's
pretty
awesome.
much.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.